Chapter 50 Mrs. Bai is on the 5th floor 4K, 1/2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mu Zhian sat on the edge of the bed, legs crossed, absorbing the spiritual energy refined by the heavenly qi while waiting for night to deepen. The effect of that heavenly qi, a leftover from some powerful immortal, was crazy. No wonder getting a golden ticket power-ups characters so fast. Too bad speeding up his cultivation meant sticking close to Bai Ruoxi. The thing was loyal, only purifying the aura around its owner. Besides, even with the heavenly qi boost, Bai Ruoxi still absorbed spiritual energy faster than him. At this rate, she'd hit the peak of qi refining pretty soon. Then, she'd probably be stuck there for a year or so. Breaking from the qi refining realm into the god refining realm wasn't just about piling up more spiritual energy. It was about personal insight. Everyone's understanding of the god refining realm was unique. Wei Mengru's was tied to her childhood, so after entering that realm, she could mask her aura, making her nearly invisible to opponents of equal strength. Ren Lao's god refining could trap residual souls. Mu Zhian wasn't in a rush. He couldn't afford to be. He was supposed to be a neglected, good-for-nothing young master, after all. He had some catching up to do, but ever since Bai Ruoxi activated that bronze sword, Mu Zhian had started wondering, was Ye Yu really the main character? Or was it Bai Ruoxi? Or, had the protagonist switched from Ye Yu to Bai Ruoxi once he'd been dealt with? Whatever. A heroine was way better than some hotshot from the Yi family. Miss Bai was on his side, after all, and her rouge was pretty great, too. Mu Zhian took a breath and opened his eyes. Bai Ruoxi seemed to be asleep, lying in the dim light, her curves hidden under a thin quilt. The small bulge of the quilt pointed to the bigness of her heart. He could almost see the ivory of her skin. He glanced at her, looked away, turned, and quietly slipped out the door. Before Bai Ruoxi rested, he had her use the qi of heaven to purify the area. The pure spiritual energy hadn't faded entirely yet, and neither had the demonic aura. Mu Zhian looked up, spotting the dark miasma rising from a specific shack. He quietly walked off. He hid in the corner by the window, just like before. After nearly an hour of patient waiting, the door creaked open. Holding his breath, Mu Zhian saw a plump woman step out. It was late, but she wore a light dress, with light makeup on her face. She strolled through the Bai family's courtyard, her hips swaying with each step. Mrs. Bai, out so late? Mu Zhian said suddenly. The unexpected voice made her freeze. She stopped, slowly turning her head. She looked surprised to see him in the shadows. Master Mu, when did you get to the Bai family? Some secret techniques, Mu Zhian said with a smile. As long as I don't mean you any harm, you won't notice me. Wei Mengru's god refining ability was super useful, but it only worked if she wasn't trying to hurt the person she was following, and Mu Zhian had no intention of hurting Mrs. Bai. Bai Yuanfeng's eyes flashed, and a charming smile spread across her face. Young Master Mu, sneaking into the Bai family in the dead of night to see my daughter, are you? She slowly walked towards him, stopping close. Girls don't like being bothered in the middle of the night. Bai Yuanfeng continued. You should be more careful. Mu Zhian smiled. I was just in Ruoxi's room. Her smile faltered. After a moment, she said softly, I approve of your match with Ruoxi. If you don't mind, I'll help you. Help place an informant in the Mu family, or prevent your daughter from getting implicated when your true nature is revealed. Mu Zhian asked, smiling. A cold glint appeared in her eyes. Mu Zhian said calmly, calm down. Ruoxi and I were just talking in the room. He was saying, I might be your future son-in-law. Think before you act. Bai Yuanfeng stopped smiling. You're really brave, saying things like that to another man's mother. We really love each other, Mu Zhian said seriously. Who in Tianxian City doesn't want to be in love with my daughter? Bai Yuanfeng scoffed. How about we find somewhere to sit down and talk? Mu Zhian suggested, let's talk here. No one else around. Bai Yuanfeng sighed. Whatever you want to ask, ask. You were hiding here, waiting for me to come out. Mu Zhian nodded slightly. Where's the meridian pill? You heard that from my daughter, Bai Yuanfeng said, narrowing her eyes. Her voice was soft and sweet. I gave it to Gongsun Xiong. Mu Zhian frowned. Gongsun Xiong can't die yet. Why not? Bai Yuanfeng said, pretending to be confused, but her eyes were fixed on Mu Zhian. She was testing him, seeing how smart this young man, her likely future son-in-law, really was. If he dies, the Gongsun family will immediately bring in a new leader, Mu Zhian said. The Bai family isn't big enough to swallow them. Bai Yuanfeng smiled. Who said I wanted to murder Gongsun Xiong? I'm just letting him lie low for a few months. Gongsun Xiong was at the peak of spirit refining. Once he recovered from his injuries, he'd definitely use the meridian pill to try to reach the return to Void Realm, but if the pill had been tampered with, the results would be very different. Compared to her mother, Bai Ruoxi was an innocent bunny, which was exactly why Mu Zhian liked her, and even though Bai Ruoxi seemed like a little rabbit, there were still some things about her that weren't quite so innocent. My uncle was ambushed on his way back from the neighboring city. Did you give the Gongsun family that information? Mu Zhian asked. Bai Yuanfeng nodded, and Mu Zhian frowned. Aren't you worried the Gongsun family's fighters would kill him on the way back? A charming smile spread across her face. Master Mu, you're a smart kid. I'll feel better with Ruoxi being with you in the future, but, your cultivation is too low. You don't understand the mysteries of spirit refining. She held out her palm. Mu Zhian's eyes narrowed. He saw a soul in her palm. It was a servant's soul. She just snatched it, she flicked her fingers, and the soul flew back into the servant's body. Seeing Mu Zhian's surprise, Bai Yuanfeng said, I was there. If your uncle had been in trouble, I could have taken his soul. The technique was similar to the old man's, except Ran Lao used his to interrogate people, and the souls he captured were already dead. Bai Yuanfeng's technique could save people at critical moments, but there had to be a downside. Mu Zhian thought Bai Yuanfeng was right. He knew too little about spirit refining. If he'd known that some spirit refining masters could take souls, he would have pieced this together faster. Why did you choose me over Yi Yu for Ruoxi? Mu Zhian suddenly asked. Yi Yu is talented, but arrogant. I've seen plenty of geniuses like him. Most of them fall by the wayside. Bai Yuanfeng said, to be honest, I'm not thrilled with either of you. But if I had to choose, the Mu family is a bigger backing. It makes me feel more secure. Are you and Gongsun Xiong really? Mu Zhian started. Bai Yuanfeng narrowed her eyes. Her voice was soft. What do you think? Her body shifted. Her shadow was like a peacock spreading its tail, 3 tails unfurling. Mu Zhian's eyes sharpened. She really was a demon cultivator, a 3-tailed fox. No wonder she could disguise herself so well, fooling Gongsun Xiong. Gongsun Xiong thought he was getting cozy with Mrs. Bai, but he'd probably just been hugging the pillar at night. And that meant Bai Ruoxi was the child of a 3-tailed fox and a human. No wonder he couldn't stop looking at Bai Ruoxi's heart. That was why. He understood now. He thought he was just being horny, but it was only because Bai Ruoxi had inherited her mother's charm. Yeah. It wasn't his fault. It was the 3-tailed fox. What are you going to do next? Mu Zhian asked. I plan to take over the Gongsun family, but the inspector from Liangyi sect came down the mountain early, Bai Yuanfeng said, frowning. Lan Murian's arrival ruined everything. Gongsun Xiong was power-hungry. If the meridian pill had caused problems, the Bai family would have had a chance to act. The Gongsun family would have been a mess, and even if the Bai family couldn't swallow them whole, they could have taken what they wanted. But with the inspector here, a big move would draw attention. The Bai family can't cause too much trouble. It'll attract the inspector, Mu Zhian said. Bai Yuanfeng nodded silently. She knew that, which was why she hadn't made a move, but the Mu family can. Mu Zhian added. She blinked, saying, you want to take over the Gongsun family? I don't have the idea of taking them over. But I have the idea of bleeding them dry, Mu Zhian said, smiling. A big one. Gongsun Xiong was clinging to power, but he was seriously injured. If he didn't take advantage of it now, when would he? Bai Yuanfeng stared at Mu Zhian. She'd worked so hard for this, only to end up giving someone else a dowry. It stung, but then she thought, maybe this was her daughter's dowry. She felt a little better. If Bai Ruoxi and Mu Zhian were together, the Mu family and Bai family would be relatives. She wouldn't lose anything. You're getting a good deal, kid, Bai Yuanfeng said faintly. Mu Zhian smiled. Mrs. Bai doesn't want to deal with it, so I'll help you take it off your hands. That's just being a good son, right? Bai Yuanfeng grunted. She hadn't realized this Mu family playboy was so smart. Was he pretending? Bai Yuanfeng looked at Mu Zhian, her eyes flickering. She was starting to see him as a son-in-law. Mrs. Bai, there's still one thing I don't understand, Mu Zhian said suddenly. Go on. Bai Yuanfeng nodded. How did the black-robed man know you were in Tianxian City? Mu Zhian asked. Bai Yuanfeng had grown up in Tianxian City. How did the people in the demon world know she was there, and that she was one of them? The demon world has been planting spies for a long time. I'm just one of them. And it was only this year that I got orders to prepare a base to meet my companions. Bai Yuanfeng paused. I don't know the details, but the seventh seat has a huge intelligence network. It's not surprising she knew about me. The seventh seat of the demon world. Mu Zhian said to himself. The black-robed man, and Bai Yuanfeng, were both spies of the seventh seat. That was odd. Tianxian City was close to Liangyi sect. How could demon cultivators operate under their noses? Could the seventh seat be inside Liangyi sect? Mu Zhian joked to himself, but somehow, it felt possible. He pulled himself together. Mrs. Bai's family is pretty happy. If you want to live a normal life, be more careful. He turned and walked towards the gate. He'd made his point. If Bai Yuanfeng listened, she'd be more restrained. The beautiful woman watched him go. The silver moonlight shone on her, highlighting the twisting shadow of her three tails. It looked bizarre. She went back inside, waiting until Mu Zhian disappeared from sight. She'd planned to visit Gongsun Xiong tonight, but now she thought Mu Zhian was right. She should be more careful. All her accomplices were dead. There was no need to conquer Tianxian City, who wanted to be controlled by others. At the same time, what are you going to do with her? As Mu Zhian walked back, the shadow beside him twisted. Wei Mengru, wearing a yellow dress, appeared, staring at his profile. Leave her for now. Let Elder Ren handle it later, Mu Zhian said. Bai Yuanfeng might have been testing him, but she didn't know he was testing her. If Bai Yuanfeng had tried to attack him, Wei Mengru would have stepped in. Bai Yuanfeng was probably stronger than Qi training, but she couldn't have stopped them from leaving. Once they were out of the Bai estate, Lan Murian would immediately know there was a demon cultivator. The Bai family would be ruined. Demon cultivators and human cultivators were enemies. Hiding a demon cultivator was a serious crime. Are you going to tell Lan Murian about the demon cultivator? Wei Mengru asked. Mu Zhian smiled. The sect assessment is coming. She doesn't have time for this. Besides, as long as Mrs. Bai stays in the Bai family, no one will notice her. Well, but the heavenly Qi can suppress demonic energy. Have the servants invite Ruoxi to the Mu family early tomorrow. Tell them I want to talk to her. Wei Mengru gave Mu Zhian a cold look. He said he just wanted to talk to Bai Ruoxi, but it wouldn't be a simple chat. Chapter 51 Miss Bai, I want to see your tail 4.5k, 1/2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Mu Zhian finished his meditation and opened his eyes to a light knock. Bai Ruoxi must be here early, he thought, and called out, come in. The door opened, and a graceful girl entered. Her attire suggested she was a maid in the Mu household, but he didn't recognize her. He frowned, puzzled. If we had such a pretty maid, I'd remember. When did you start working here? He asked. I don't think I've seen you before, though you do look familiar. Sounds like you're hitting on her, Wei Mengru said, appearing in the doorway. She's the daughter you saved from the Chen family, remember? The one from the other day. You rescued her from Gongsun Zan. Mu Zhian was surprised. He looked at the maid more closely. She was pretty and well-built. Then it clicked. This was the Chen family girl, the one who almost suffered a terrible fate at Gongsun Zan's hands. Miss Wei has been looking after me. I wanted to thank you earlier, but she said you were busy, the girl said softly, bowing slightly. Thank you for your help, Mr. Mu. Are you settling in okay? Mu Zhian asked with a smile. She nodded. It was a little rough at first, but I'm getting used to it. After all, she'd been born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Becoming a maid was a huge adjustment, that's life, he mused. 1 minute you're living the high life, and the next, who knows what could happen, the black-robed man's dying words echoed in his mind. The court was rotten. The emperor was a fool, obsessed with his concubine. The officials were masters of deception, lining their pockets under the guise of justice. The Gongsun family wasn't part of the government, but as cultivators, they had connections. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to get away with their shady dealings. Mu Zhian didn't know the details of the Chen family's downfall, only that the censor must have been corrupt or offended someone powerful. He suspected the latter was more likely. Being targeted was the only reason someone got raided. And it was because of all this that Miss Chen almost met a tragic end. If you have any trouble, talk to the head of the house, Mu Zhian said. Normally, these women would have been sent to the Jiafangxi after the raid, but the Mu family had enough influence to prevent that. Even if those in power knew, they'd probably turn a blind eye. Miss Chen thanked him again, and Mu Zhian just smiled. The court was unpredictable. One moment the Chen family was under investigation, and the next, some colleague could swoop in and save them, catapulting them back into prominence. Realistically, the chances of a comeback were slim. Just think of it as doing something I wanted to do. It makes me feel a little better, and that's enough, right? Mu Zhian didn't see himself as a saint, but he didn't want to be a bad guy either. After the Chen girl left, Mu Zhian turned to Wei Mengru. Sister Mengru, what brings you here so early? Were you planning to help me get dressed? Wei Mengru just rolled her eyes. The eldest daughter of the Bai family is here to see you. She's in the backyard. Oh, right. I asked someone to invite her yesterday morning. Didn't expect her to come so soon. Mu Zhian yawned and stretched. Go ahead. I'll get changed and meet you in the backyard. After Wei Mengru left, Mu Zhian changed clothes and smoothed his hair in front of the bronze mirror. Gotta look presentable when meeting a girl. He left his room and headed to the pavilion in the backyard. The morning sun was warm, and the leaves rustled in the breeze. Bai Ruoxi, dressed in a long white skirt, sat under the pavilion, engrossed in a book. Her black hair cascaded down, revealing the pale curve of her neck. Wei Mengru was nowhere to be seen. He wondered if she was lurking nearby or hadn't made it to the backyard yet. Holding his breath, Mu Zhian crept closer. Bai Ruoxi seemed oblivious, turning the pages with her slender fingers. Just as Mu Zhian was about to sneak up on her, a soft, cool voice said, Mr. Mu is suppressing his qi and approaching me stealthily. Planning something? Mu Zhian stopped dead in his tracks, staring at Bai Ruoxi in astonishment. How could she sense me when we're both at the qi training stage? Bai Ruoxi glanced sideways, a faint smile on her face. If it were yesterday, I probably wouldn't have noticed, but this morning, I realized I'd reached the 9th level of qi training. This heavenly energy is really something. Mu Zhian felt a pang of envy. Bai Ruoxi's eyes sparkled with joy, but she nodded demurely. The qi of heaven is powerful, but I think my breakthrough might also be related to your visit to the Bai residence yesterday. How could my visit have anything to do with your advancement? Mu Zhian asked, confused. He had gone to the Bai mansion to investigate Bai Mu's affairs and make out with Bai Ruoxi, not much else. Bai Ruoxi blushed, her voice shy. You're a natural furnace. It took Mu Zhian a second to understand. So that's it. Kissing triggers the natural furnace effect. He was slightly stunned, then looked at Bai Ruoxi's face and the curve of her rear where she sat on the stone chair. I don't see any ears or a tail. Is Bai Ruoxi really the child of a three-tailed fox and a human? Mu Zhian felt a pang of regret. Bai Ruoxi clearly noticed his gaze. A faint blush spread across her face, and she whispered, Why are you staring at my head, Anne? She couldn't bring herself to say the word. She thought Mu Zhian was acting strange today. He'd been staring at her head but since he arrived. Maybe yesterday's intimacy made him want more. It's nothing, don't worry about it, Mu Zhian said, snapping back to reality. He smiled. I just wanted to see if you had fox ears or a tail or something. Fox ears and a tail, Bai Ruoxi was startled, remembering the demon form her mother had shown her. Her eyes widened, and she stared at Mu Zhian in disbelief. You know. Yeah, is that a surprise? Weren't you planning to tell me yesterday? Mu Zhian asked with a smile. Bai Ruoxi was silent. To be honest, I'm happy, Mu Zhian said suddenly. Bai Ruoxi was willing to share her secret, which meant she trusted him. That felt good. What are you going to do? Bai Ruoxi asked, looking up at him. Will you tell your senior sister? Mu Zhian shook his head. Senior sister is busy with the sex assessment. Best not to bother her. Bai Ruoxi breathed a sigh of relief. She'd been anxious on her way to Mu Zhian's house, sensing that he already knew the truth. His answer calmed her nerves. Mu Zhian gently took her slender hand, stared at her pale face, and said, Ruoxi, can I ask you something? Her hand suddenly caught, and realizing that Mu Zhian was staring at her closely, Bai Ruoxi lowered her eyes, a shy look in her eyes, and whispered, What is it? Mu Zhian asked seriously, Do you have fox ears and a tail? Bai Ruoxi blinked, confusion in her eyes. Is that important? Yes. Very important. Mu Zhian was serious. Whether she had fox ears or not was a big deal. Bai Ruoxi shook her head. I don't know. She hesitated, glanced at Mu Zhian, and said softly, But I do remember sometimes feeling itchy on my head. Maybe that has something to do with the fox ears you mentioned. I see. Mu Zhian was intrigued. He sat next to Bai Ruoxi and leaned in, observing her face with curiosity. Her clothes couldn't hide her curves, and a hint of white skin peeked out in the sunlight. Mu Zhian couldn't help but glance again, which made Bai Ruoxi drop her eyes in even more embarrassment. She didn't even notice when the book she held fell to the ground. Compared to her cold demeanor when they first met, the lovesick girl didn't have those defenses now. She didn't resist him being so close, only feeling a mix of shyness and excitement. I don't see any fox ears. Mu Zhian muttered, the distance between them shrinking, being so intimate in the open air of the pavilion. Bai Ruoxi, who had never been in love before, couldn't help but feel ashamed. Her face was flushed, and she turned her face away, pursing her lips. A strand of hair fell across her cheek, highlighting her profile. Mu Zhian leaned closer and kissed her neck, making Bai Ruoxi flinch. She turned to look at him and said, Are you done? No matter how long you look, you won't find any fox ears. Not yet, I'll take another look. Mu Zhian didn't give up. Did I say you could? Bai Ruoxi started, then felt his lips on hers. Her heart raced. Her back pressed against the stone pillar, and her tense body gradually softened. After a while, Mu Zhian leaned back on the stone chair, sighing contentedly. The ancient said that beauties are good for eating. I thought it was a lie, but, the ancients were right. Bai Ruoxi glanced at Mu Zhian, her eyes full of resentment, and silently wiped her lips with her handkerchief. When they first met, Mu Zhian was a gentleman. After yesterday's kiss, he seemed to have fewer and fewer reservations. And they were in the backyard pavilion. What would happen if a servant saw them? Mu Zhian saw her resentful expression but ignored it. He coughed slightly. Let's go to the competition arena. In the next few days, there should be a lot of young cultivators competing there. Maybe we'll see some old acquaintances. Bai Ruoxi looked at Mu Zhian and nodded silently. With the sex examination coming up, all the young talents in Tianxian City must be eager. There would be plenty of competitions, and it was as good a way as any to relax. Yangfeng Inn. This inn was located near the center of Tianxian City. Nearby was a tea house with a history of hundreds of years. Lan Mulian, wearing a moon-white dress, sat in a quiet tea room, turning her teacup. She tilted her head, watching the competition in the distance. On the stage, a handsome young man was sparring with someone from Tianxian City. Lan Mulian didn't hear their conversation, but judging by their attacks, there was some bad blood between them. The beauty across from her played with her teacup, white legs crossed, the red cheongsam accentuating her figure. Her eyes were fixed on Lan Mulyan, Fei Ying, chief auctioneer of the Chenxi Chamber of Commerce. This tea house has the best location in Tianxian City, near the competition stage. You can watch the young talents compete and prepare for the sect assessments, Fei Ying said softly. Lan Mulyan nodded. It was a quiet tea room, so Lan Mulyan had removed the veil from her face. She was beautiful, but her eyes were even more striking, cold as ice. One sister was an ice queen, and the other was enchanting. If you looked closely, you'd see that Lan Mulyan and Fei Ying looked very similar. But their personalities were different. Their most compelling feature wasn't their looks, but the fact that they were sisters. That alone changed everything. That's Ye Yu, a genius from the Yi family. For some reason, his skills dropped, and he became a waste. But this year, he returned to his peak in less than 6 months, Fei Ying said. Peak of refining in months. He's close to reaching the Qi realm. Lan Mulyan murmured, thoughtful. That talent was rare. Worth mentioning, a few days ago, Ye Yu sparred with someone in Dragon's Head Forest and lost badly, Fei Ying said, waiting for her sister to ask more, but Lan Mulyan didn't seem interested. She watched Ye Yu, who had just beaten his opponent, with a thoughtful expression. Fei Ying rested her chin on her hand and leaned closer to the table, her chest pressing against the surface. She looked out the window at the competition stage, then her eyes fell on Mu Zhian, who had just arrived nearby. Why is he here too? Fei Ying muttered. Lan Mulyan followed her sister's gaze. A ripple crossed her face. She turned to Fei Ying and asked coldly, you know him? Chapter 52 Bai Ruoxi, Invincible Among His Peers 3K. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Yeah, I know him. Mu Zhian. That kid's practically Tianxian City's resident bad boy. Who doesn't know him? Fei Ying's eyes narrowed, her red fingernails idly twirling a strand of hair. She glanced towards Mu Zhian near the stage. What is a surprise is that you know him. Turning back to Lan Mulyan, she locked eyes with her sister. How'd you two meet? I saw him heading towards your room the other day when I got back to the inn. Lan Mulyan replied calmly, a message between him and a friend of mine ended up with me by accident. We've been chatting through paper cranes since. Fei Ying let out a disbelieving huh. And said, sister, you actually have friends? That was a low blow. Anyone else from the Liangyi sect wouldn't dare say something like that to Lan Mulyan. They would just assume she didn't have friends. After all, the ice beauty persona isn't exactly inviting. Even people with genuine intentions might get cold feet because of Mulyan's talent, making people wonder if their motives were pure. It wasn't like Lan Mulyan wanted to be an ice queen, it was just the image everyone had of her. Which is why her letter-writing style was so different, completely at odds with the cold, detached demeanor she showed now. Lan Mulyan said coolly, Mu Zhian has potential, but he's slacking. Fei Ying laughed. Well, if you spent your time partying it up at a brothel, you wouldn't be in the god-refining realm either. Do you like him? Lan Mulyan asked. Fei Ying paused, then smiled sweetly. I guess I do. He's like a little brother to me. A little brother who likes to play grown-up and stir up trouble. Fei Ying didn't want to dwell on the subject, so she changed the topic. Speaking of which, have you considered your picks for the sex assessment? The Liangyi sect had 2 types of assessments. One where the assessor personally escorts the disciples who participate and the other where participants go to Mount Bai on their own. They seem the same, but there are differences. Lan Mulyan's pick skipped the outer disciple stage to become inner disciples. Each assessor has a quota like that. Did you bring that list of Tianxian City's prodigies you mentioned? Lan Mulyan asked. Fei Ying nodded, handing over a list. Huang Manting from Chenxi Commerce, Ye Yu from the Yi family, Mu Zhian from the Mu family, Gong Sun Cheng, the 4th son, and Bai Ruoxi from the Bai family, plus a dozen or so others. I've got notes on their backgrounds, if you want to take a look. Basically, the kids from the big families. They have all the advantages, parents who are Qi and God refiners, and they pass that talent down. Lan Mulyan skimmed the list. Her eyes lingered on Mu Zhian's name for a moment. She shook her head slightly. He's got the talent, but his attitude was lousy. That if he had stayed on track, Mu Zhian would be at least at the 7th level of qi refining by now. Yeah, well, he's had a recent attitude adjustment, Fei Ying said, trying to sway her sister. Lan Mulian's eyes flickered slightly, but her expression remained unchanged. She simply looked at her sister, saying nothing. Seeing that her sister wasn't biting, Fei Ying pouted and continued. He offed the 3rd son of the Gongsun family because of some woman he barely knew. It caused a huge scene. Everyone thought the Gongsun family would retaliate. But I don't know what the two families worked out behind closed doors. It was settled. Soon after that, it was reported that the 3rd son of the Gongsun family was killed by a mysterious figure in black. Lan Mulian remained impassive, so Mu Zhian shifted the blame to some black-robed guy. You're telling me all this because you want me to think he's not as bad as I thought. Lan Mulian saw through Fei Ying's game. Fei Ying smiled sweetly. I'm just stating the facts. It doesn't matter if you do or don't. Lan Mulian picked up her teacup, took a sip, and said quietly, he doesn't need my help anyway. The Mu family already had a recommendation spot, so there was no need to fight with anyone, but who should get the inner disciple spot? She'd have to think about it. Just then, Fei Ying suddenly said, looks like there's some drama brewing down there. Lan Mulian turned her head slightly, noticing that Ye Yu, who had just won his fight, had spotted Mu Zhian and was now pointing his sword at him. Mu Zhian, you got the guts to come up here and fight me. Below, the young man in black robes stood with an indifferent expression, his dark eyes fixed on the handsome young man near the stage. Several heads turned. All eyes were on Mu Zhian. Mu Zhian sighed. Master Yi, I'm just here to watch and learn. I'm not in the mood for any action today. Yi you lost a while ago, why does he want to fight me again? And he didn't mention anything about the qi of heaven. Did he not want others to know about it, or did he give up? While Mu Zhian was looking at Ye Yu, Bai Ruoxi sent a message. Ye Yu is on the verge of reaching the qi training state. Mu Zhian narrowed his eyes, studying Ye Yu more closely. Now that he thought about it, Ye Yu's demeanor was different. He used to come off as arrogant, but now he seemed calmer. Even so, his eyes were full of unconcealed animosity when he looked at Mu Zhian. His training speed is ridiculously fast, so the chosen one is chosen. Their luck is better than others. Even if he loses the qi of heaven, there are still other opportunities. Master Mu, Master Yi has made a cordial invitation to fight. Do you want to avoid the fight? Nearby, Gongsun Cheng, the 4th son of the Gongsun family, was sprawled on a stone chair, stoking the flames. Mu Zhian smiled. Master Gongsun, what's more important, a fight or a pretty face? Gongsun Cheng raised an eyebrow and replied with a smile. Beauty is important, but I heard the Yi family had a marriage agreement with the Bai family a long time ago. Master Mu grabbing love is a little extreme. It's no wonder that Master Yi is so angry. I think it's better to go on stage and fight with him so that he can vent his anger. Mu Zhian smiled. What's it to you? Just giving advice. Gongsun Cheng shrugged, looking calm. Who are you trying to help? Mu Zhian smiled. Gongsun Cheng seemed thrown off. The calm look on his face disappeared. He narrowed his eyes, staring at Mu Zhian. Master Mu, my temper isn't as good as Ye Yu's. Even in the arena, I can't guarantee I won't do anything. It was barely veiled as a threat. No wonder, Gongsun Cheng was at the 8th level of qi training. Mu Zhian was weaker. Gongsun Cheng wanted to find an opportunity to teach Mu Zhian a lesson. His father was seriously injured in bed and the head of the Bai family was the biggest reason. But it seemed that Mu Zhian was also involved. Although he didn't know the reason, he could use this as an excuse to teach Mu Zhian a lesson. Watching Gongsun Cheng slowly stand up, Bai Ruoxi stepped forward, standing in front of Mu Zhian. Is Miss Bai trying to protect her little lover? She went to find the eldest young master of the Mu family right after the engagement was terminated. But, given young Master Ye's performance, you may not have the best taste. Gongsun Cheng said with sarcasm. Shut up, Bai Ruoxi replied coldly, and the bronze sword quietly appeared behind her. You want to fight? Gongsun Cheng's eyes went to the boy behind Bai Ruoxi. He smiled and said, Master Mu, are you going to hide behind this woman? Mu Zhian smiled. That's the plan. I have a beautiful companion to protect me, what about you? Gongsun Cheng narrowed his eyes. So, young Master Mu takes pride in it. What man wouldn't want a powerful and beautiful companion? Mu Zhian looked around, raising his voice. Does anyone not want a powerful and beautiful monk? Is there anyone like that? The men couldn't help but laugh. The answer was obvious, who wouldn't want a strong monk with big breasts and a small waist? Especially if it was Bai Ruoxi, the number of people chasing Bai Ruoxi would stretch from one end of the city to the other. The crowd's laughter was grating in Gongsun Cheng's ears. He stared into Mu Zhian's eyes, saying, Mu Zhian. You're getting worked up, Mu Zhian said with a sigh. Compared to his father, Gongsun Cheng still had a long way to go. Gongsun Cheng's eyes sharpened. He drew his sword, striking at Mu Zhian. Bai Ruoxi sealed her hands, sending the bronze sword flying towards Gongsun Cheng. Gongsun Cheng snorted. Several layers of halos appeared around his body. This was the Gongsun family's martial arts technique. Its defense can't be broken without being at the god-refining realm. He raised his hand, moving towards Mu Zhian, his eyes cold. Suddenly, there was a shattering sound, like glass breaking on the ground. When the bronze sword reached the golden bell Buddha, it shattered almost instantly, as simple as tearing a piece of paper. Boom, star, the sword wind blasted out. Gongsun Cheng coughed up blood, flying backward and landing heavily on the ground. The area fell silent. Everyone stared blankly at the eldest daughter of the Bai family. She defeated Gongsun Cheng, with just one sword strike. Her strength is probably invincible. Everyone looked surprised, but Mu Zhian remained calm. This is all an act. He was surprised as well. He couldn't help but look at Bai Ruoxi. He knew Bai Ruoxi was strong, but he didn't expect this. A cultivator at the 9th level of Qi training defeated someone at the 8th level with just one sword. He was becoming more and more convinced that Bai Ruoxi was the main character. Chapter 53. If you are jealous, be as jealous as possible. 5.5k, 1/2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. One sword. That's all it took for Bai Ruoxi to take down Gongsun Cheng. Mu Zhian knew she'd become a force to be reckoned with, but even he was a little blown away. He knew the bronze sword gave her an edge, but didn't realize how big of one. Young master, are you all right? Two servants rushed over to help Gongsun Cheng, who was clutching his chest, barely staying on his feet. His spiritual energy felt like a washing machine on spin cycle, and he could feel eyes burning into him. Humiliated, he glared at Bai Ruoxi, sword strapped to her back. Miss Bai, the Bai family's barely back on its feet. Are you trying to start a war between us and the Gongsuns? Bai Ruoxi just frowned, staring back at him, silent. Gongsun Cheng pressed on, this is between Mu Zhian and me. Back off now, and I'll pretend this never happened. With her father back, the Bais were showing signs of a comeback. Gongsun Cheng was looking for an out and trying to knock the Bai family down a peg. Seeing Bai Ruoxi hesitate, Gongsun Cheng smirked, ready to keep running his mouth, but then Mu Zhian chuckled. Oh, so you get your butt handed to you, and suddenly you're hiding behind your family name? Do you even speak for the whole Gongsun clan? Mu Zhian had only recently been given authority by the Mu family. Plus, they had a few elders in the refining god realm who were in seclusion. If something went sideways, those elders could clean up the mess. Gongsun Cheng was fourth of 6 kids. The competition in the clan was fierce. There was no way he could represent the entire Gongsun family. He was just a punk trying to throw his weight around. If you're out here acting up, is Uncle Gongsun gonna break your legs when he finds out? Mu Zhian asked, all innocence. Gongsun Xiong probably wanted to lie low and recover. If he knew Gongsun Cheng had picked a fight with the Mu family's golden boy, he would have a fit. Gongsun Cheng understood. He just glared at Mu Zhian. Mu, you wanna go? Nah, Mu Zhian said, throwing his hands up. Honestly, it's pointless. Your 8th grade Qi training is weak sauce. Getting wrecked by a sword from someone your own age. Kinda boring. He snapped his fingers, acting concerned. Oh, hey, I've got some healing potions at my place. Want me to send some over? Gong Sun Qing tasted blood. His rage was boiling. Young master, chill. He's trying to bait you. You'll only hurt yourself if you get worked up, his attendant whispered. Gong Sun Qing swallowed his anger and said coldly, fine, I admit Miss Bai is strong. Probably nobody her age can beat her. But what's that got to do with you? What's a useless third-level qi training like you got to do with this? Mu Zhian just smiled, all smooth and polished. I can't beat Ruoxi, true. But an 8th level like you got your butt handed to you by one sword. What's the difference between you and a 3rd level like me? Either way, we both got played. But I can beat him. That set Gong Sun Qing off. His eyes narrowed, sending daggers at Mu Zhian. And another thing. Mu Zhian, acting like he didn't notice, turned to the knockout next to him. He gently took Bai Ruoxi's hand, right in front of everyone. Ruoxi and I, we're cool, right? Mu Zhian asked, turning to her with a smile, every eye locked on Bai Ruoxi. She looked down, blushing, but she didn't pull away or draw her sword, like everyone wanted. She just let Mu Zhian hold her hand, face hidden, and murmured, yeah. And just like that, the whole crowd wanted to murder Mu Zhian. They had the urge to kick him out of the way and take his spot. The writing was on the wall, those two were definitely into each other. But seeing Mu Zhian holding her hand so openly, it was a little hard to swallow. They were even having the same impulse as Gong Sun Qing, teach that Mu kid a lesson. But then they saw the girl next to him, and remembered who she was. They calmed down, but still, they were all worked up. They're both qi training, but she broke Gong Sun Qing's golden bell Buddha power with a single strike. Miss Bai's probably unbeatable among her peers. It looked like she was using special skills. She can't use them repeatedly. But if she can use that bronze sword a few times in a fight, nobody can stop her. The Bai family might be down now, but with Bai Ruoxi alone, they're gonna make waves. I wonder who can even get with a girl like that, someone sighed. Just look who's holding her hand, and you'll know. That got the guys a little jumpy, and the whole place went quiet for a beat. Wait, am I the only one who thinks Mu Zhian needs a beatdown? Someone whispered. It's not that he just deserves one. He deserves one for even being near Miss Bai. I want to punch his pretty boy face. Go on, try it. Why me? Why don't you go? The man scoffed. Bai Ruoxi's power was enough to scare the other cultivators off. They knew the bronze sword probably wasn't reusable, but no one knew how many times she could use it in a fight. Besides, if he attacked the Mu family's star child in Tianxian City, he would be signing his own death warrant. Gong Sun Qing was just impulsive, thinking the Muse wouldn't start a full-scale war, but he just paid a heavy price for that impulse. Gong Sun family's top genius loses to Bai Ruoxi's sword. That would follow Gong Sun Qing forever in Tianxian City, even if he joined Liangyi sect. It would be the defining embarrassment of his life. The Gong Sun servants knew they couldn't get anything out of staying, so they helped Gong Sun Qing up and turned to leave. Oh, hold on, young master Gong Sun. As the Gong Sun genius hobbled off, Mu Zhian seemed to remember something. I'd think less about sticking my nose in other people's business, and more about what's happening back home. Gong Sun Qing stopped and glared back. What's that supposed to mean? Just saying, doesn't matter how strong you are. It's about the base, Mu Zhian said with a smile. Your house is burning down and you're worried about a one-on-one? What are you even thinking? Seeing Mu Zhian smile, Gong Sun Qing had a bad feeling. As Gong Sun Qing limped away with his servants, Mu Zhian looked back at the crowd, bowed, and said, sorry for the show. Ruoxi and I just came to watch the young ones compete. Won't keep you any longer. Everyone bowed back, returning the courtesy. The Mu golden boy was being respectful, so they would, too. After all, not everyone was like Gong Sun Qing and Ye Yu, who had it out for Mu Zhian. Okay, so they were a little jealous of Bai Ruoxi. The competition went on, and the crowd chattered about what had just happened. Ye Yu, who'd been the one to watch for his talent, was forgotten, just like that. People stopped talking about Ye, now at the peak of the refining essence, and beating Qi. Training cultivators. They wanted to talk about Bai Ruoxi and Mu Zhian. Compared to a knockout like Bai Ruoxi, Ye's talent seemed less impressive, plus a 9th level of Qi training, and a 3rd level Qi training player together. And the other party's Bai Ruoxi. People were gonna talk about that for days. Mu Zhian took Bai Ruoxi's hand and led her to a nearby stone chair. The Ice Queen was now shy and sweet, and it was all for Mu Zhian. The sun set, carriages went by, an ancient building stood tall. Mu Zhian leaned back against the stone chair, one hand holding Bai Ruoxi's, and looked over with a grin. Ruoxi, you been hiding your tail? Come on, let me see it. Bai Ruoxi was way more reserved in public. She shook her head. I don't have any tail or ears. Mr. Mu, please don't tease me. I don't believe it unless you let me see it. Bai Ruoxi rolled her eyes. How could he see it? The ears would be right there, but the tail. Hey, before the sect test starts, why don't you stay at the Mu mansion? Mu Zhian said suddenly. Teasing was fine, but he couldn't go too far. If Bai Ruoxi got upset, it would be more trouble than it was worth. Bai Ruoxi hesitated. Why the Mu mansion? Mu Zhian leaned close and whispered, the heavenly Tao's energy cleans up the spiritual energy, but it'll also expose the demonic energy on your mom. Bai Ruoxi's eyes widened. She snapped her head around to look at Mu Zhian. Really? How do you think I found out about your mom? Mu Zhian said, no wonder he knew about my mom. It was because of the heavenly Tao. Bai Ruoxi nodded. Then I'll be in your debt for a bit. She felt him playing with her hand, and her face got hot again. She glanced around, making sure no one was watching, and then relaxed. Mu Zhian was already bold. If she actually stayed with him at the Mu mansion, would he really not go overboard? Bai Ruoxi was a little worried. Mu Zhian didn't know that Bai Ruoxi was worried about his safety. He was just holding her hand and playing with her fingers, looking at the competition like he didn't have a care in the world. Ye wins. The call rang out from the arena, catching Mu Zhian's attention. He looked up. Ye, in a black robe, had just beaten another Qi training cultivator. Mu Zhian recognized him. He was pretty sure he was a 2nd level. This Ye's getting stronger. Mu Zhian thought. Just then, Ye noticed Mu Zhian, too. He smirked, gave Mu Zhian a thumbs up, and then pointed it down. Mu Zhian wouldn't take the challenge from a refining essence fighter, and everyone knew it. Ye's meaning was clear. Mu Zhian just shrugged it off. Under Ye's glare, Mu Zhian turned to Bai Ruoxi, pushed her hair back, and kissed her forehead. Then, he turned back to Ye and gave him a thumbs up. Got him, basically. What are you doing? Bai Ruoxi said, sounding a little annoyed. Hey, you're just too cute. I couldn't help myself, Mu Zhian said, holding her hand. Ye froze, staring at the scene, silent. He still couldn't figure out why he was worse than Mu Zhian. Anyone could see that he was way more talented, and that he would be better than Mu Zhian, but Bai Ruoxi had picked Mu Zhian. Ye's fists tightened, and jealousy flared. Brother Ye, the elders want you back at the estate. Something they need to tell you. A sweet voice cut through the air. Mu Zhian looked over. A cute girl in a light blue dress, a thin belt around her waist, long black hair down her back, and deerskin boots. The pure and sweet girl next door. If he remembered right, she was the daughter of the Ye family's eldest elder, Ye Qian. Ye was obviously in a bad mood. He jumped down from the arena, looked at his cousin, and said, know what it's about. Ye Qian shook her head. They didn't say. Ye grunted and turned away. Ye Qian hesitated, watched her cousin walk away, and said, oh, brother Ye. You're an alchemist, right? I'm at the peak of refining essence. Could you make me a Qi training pill? I'll pay for your time and materials. Ye didn't answer. We'll talk when we get back, he said. He'd only started talking to her again recently, and with Mu Zhian making him feel like crap, Ye wasn't in the mood to be nice to his cousin. Ye Qian watched Ye walk away, looking down. If her cousin wouldn't help, she'd have to ask the alchemist at Dawn Auction House. It would be more expensive, but if she wanted to break through to the Qi training realm, she needed a Qi training pill. Ye Qian sighed, turning to follow Yi Yu, and go back to the Yi family. Then, a tall figure stood in her way, soft hair, expensive robes, a gentle face and a smile. For a young girl like Yi Qian, Mu Zhian was her dream guy. She couldn't look away. Then, she snapped out of it, shook her head, and looked up with wide, deer-like eyes. Mr. Mu. What's up? She knew her cousin didn't like Mu Zhian, and she knew about Mu Zhian's reputation around town. The elders had warned her more than once not to get involved with Mu Zhian. Yi Qian had taken that to heart. It was her first time face-to-face with Mu Zhian. Mu Zhian smiled. Don't be nervous. I just have a beef with Yi Yu. Don't be so jumpy around me. With Yi Qian watching, Mu Zhian pulled a small box from his ring and held it out to her. What is it? Yi Qian frowned, looked at Mu Zhian, and opened the box. A round pill, a Qi training pill. Mr. Mu, I can't take this, Yi Qian said, trying to give the box back. Mu Zhian kept smiling. If you don't want it now, you'll just go to the auction house, buy materials, and find someone to make it later. It'll take time and money. I'm not giving you this Qi training pill, I'm selling it to you, at cost. You can have someone bring the spirit stone to the Mu mansion next time. He's not as bad as everyone says. He's nice. Yi Qian looked at Mu Zhian's gentle smile. She hesitated, and took the Qi training pill with both hands. I don't have any spirit stones on me. I'll bring the money tomorrow. Yi Qian bowed slightly to Mu Zhian, held the small box, and hurried off. Her boots hit the ground, her dress fluttering in the breeze, showing a glimpse of her thighs. Mu Zhian watched, and smiled. Helping others makes you feel good. He looked away and sat down next to Bai Ruoxi, watching the young fighters on the stage, teasing the girl next to him. It was great. In the tea house. Sis, what do you think of the Mu kid? Fei Ying asked with a grin. Lan Mulyan looked away. He's good, she said. Talented, smart, and he's got character, but we need to see how it goes. He's a good prospect. Yi Yu and Gong Sun Cheng were a letdown. They had talent, but their character was crap. A true fighter couldn't be so easily influenced. What about Bai Ruoxi? Fei Ying asked. Lan Mulyan paused. If the master saw her, she might try to take her as a disciple. Bai Ruoxi was unstoppable. That bronze sword was too much for anyone her age. Fei Ying glanced at the Dawn Chamber of Commerce guy, now on stage, and smiled. Guess we're done here. Should we go downstairs? You want to meet Miss Bai? Fei Ying looked at her sister meaningfully. Lan Mulyan took a sip of tea, then, she looked at the beautiful girl in the white dress. She nodded. Okay. Chapter 54 Classic Multithreaded Operation 4.5K, 1/2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yi Yu's one lucky dude, huh? His fiancée dumps him, and boom, a cousin shows up. I wonder if there's gonna be another cousin, or maybe a childhood sweetheart, next time. Mu Zhian leaned back against the stone chair, glancing up at the two monks battling it out on stage. Thinking over the events that had just unfolded, he couldn't help but sigh. Seriously, Yi Yu's got it made. Beautiful girls are always around. Too bad he's still hung up on his ex-fiancée, and doesn't seem to appreciate his cousin. Yi Qian is a pretty cute girl. What did you say to Yi Qian back there? Bai Ruoxi turned her head slightly toward Mu Zhian, her voice soft. She'd seen them talking earlier. Though she couldn't make out the words, Yi Qian's shy reaction made it pretty clear he'd said something smooth. Mu Zhian snapped back to reality, shaking his head with a smile. Nothing, just helping out. By giving her a Qi training pill? Bai Ruoxi asked, a brow raised. Not exactly a gift, Mu Zhian explained. I just sold it to her at cost. Bai Ruoxi wasn't buying it, her brow furrowing slightly. Selling it to her at cost is pretty much the same as giving it away. Alchemists are a seriously rare breed in this world. Usually, people hand over their medicinal ingredients to the alchemists and pay them for their time and effort. The labor fees alone are often enough to buy a second batch of the same ingredients. Even in a big city like Tianxian, there are only a handful of alchemists. Bai Ruoxi was right. Selling the pill at cost was practically a freebie. You and you don't get along, so what are you trying to accomplish here? Bai Ruoxi stared at Mu Zhian's profile, whispering, or, do you have a thing for that girl? As she spoke, she lowered her eyes, her long lashes catching the light, darkening her gaze. Relax, Mu Zhian said. Freebies come with a price, you know. Bai Ruoxi's eyes widened a bit, still confused, but Mu Zhian didn't elaborate, just gently took her soft hand, and smiled. You're moving into the Mu mansion soon, right? You'll figure it out. If something has no value, it's given away for free, but that chi training pill has value, and sometimes, what looks free is anything but. Seeing that Bai Ruoxi was still in doubt, Mu Zhian leaned in close to her ear, whispering, just know that having you by my side is all that matters. Bai Ruoxi's face flushed slightly, feeling his warm hand gently holding hers, she lowered her eyes and softly murmured an okay. Even if she acts cold and aloof at times, she's actually a shy girl. Mu Zhian looked at Bai Ruoxi's beautiful profile and couldn't help but smile knowingly. Just then, a wave of stares hit Mu Zhian, making him feel uncomfortable. Everyone knows how close he and Bai Ruoxi are, but the appeal of the hottest girl in Tianxian still makes people act strange. Mu Zhian brushed them off. He smiled at everyone, then refocused his gaze on the battle raging on stage. But a sudden chill ran down Mu Zhian's back, an unsettling coldness washed over him. They weren't staring at him and Ruoxi. Mu Zhian whipped his head around, scanning the crowd, then he saw her. Lan Mulyan, veiled and ice-cold, had taken a seat behind him. She peered up at the sparring disciples, her stare steady and even. Lan Feiying, all curves and sex appeal, sat in the corner, legs crossed. While she also seemed to be fixed on the stage, her eyes never strayed from Mu Zhian. She kept her relationship with her sister on the DL, not wanting to attract the wrong kind of attention, and she couldn't stand comparisons with her sister. Why is she here? Mu Zhian asked, surprised. Sis, what are you doing here? The sect assessment is coming up. I'm just confirming the number of participants in advance, Lan Mulyan said evenly. As the assessment proctor, it made perfect sense for her to get a head count. After a beat, Mu Zhian nodded slowly, comprehension dawning. Then, almost as an afterthought, his smile froze. He stared at Lan Mulyan's beautiful face, hesitating before speaking. How long have you been here? Lan Mulyan pondered for a moment, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. Longer than you. This woman saw everything. And she wasn't looking at the stage. Mu Zhian tried again. I didn't see you around. He wouldn't have been getting handsy with Bai Ruoxi if he'd known Lan Mulyan was nearby. At least, not until they were alone. I was at a tea house. Had a pretty good view, Lan Mulyan answered casually. Mu Zhian knew the tea house near Yangfeng Inn. He'd been there before, watching matches from the great view. He hadn't expected that Lan Mulyan had already found all of the interesting things the city has to offer. At that moment, Mu Zhian's smile got awkward, but Lan Mulyan didn't seem to care less about what he'd been up to. She turned her gaze toward the girl in black, sparring on stage. That's Huang Manting from the Dawn Chamber of Commerce, right? Mu Zhian pulled himself together and looked up. The girl in the black dress looked enchanting as she battled another cultivator. The dark fabric made her skin appear whiter by comparison. Mu Zhian nodded slightly. That's Huang Manting. He'd met her once, but they weren't friends. Lan Mulyan studied her for a moment and nodded. She has talent. Then, her tone shifted, though I'd say the girl next to you has more. Based on Bai Ruoxi's earlier demonstration, Lan Mulyan had plenty of evidence. Normally, Mu Zhian would assume Lan Mulyan was just complimenting Bai Ruoxi. But this time, he felt like there was more to it. Bai Ruoxi tilted her head toward the examiner, her smile careful. It's very kind of you to say so, but it's thanks to Master Mu that I'm where I am today. Lan Mulyan seemed intrigued, and looked at Mu Zhian. It seems that although Master Mu's skills are not too advanced, he is very helpful.
I heard he went to Liangyi sect that night to find an ingredient to save someone, right? Mu Zhian gave a tight smile and said nothing. For the first time, he felt actual pressure. Then, Bai Ruoxi gently hooked her arm through Mu Zhian's, looking up at Lan Mulyan with a light smile. If you're interested, let's talk next time you visit the Mu mansion. I'm staying at his place for the time being. Lan gave a subtle look and agreed, with a smile, sure. Mu Zhian soaked in the warmth of the sun, but felt his scalp tighten and his back get a chill. He could hold his own against demon cultivators and even the Gongsun family, and could even guess at their intentions. But he couldn't figure out these two, or what their words actually meant. Women's minds are way harder to read than Gongsun Xiong and demon cultivators. Sis, it's getting late. I've got stuff to do, so I'll head back. Catch you later, Mu Zhian said, getting up to leave. If cozying up to Bai Ruoxi was fun before, now it's nothing but torture. Lan Mulyan didn't even look up, just grunted an okay. Mu Zhian gave a quick nod, and left the arena. A carriage was waiting outside. Mu Zhian threw open the curtain and climbed in. Bai Ruoxi bent slightly and followed. Neither of them spoke. Then, as the carriage pulled away, Bai Ruoxi quietly said, "That senior seems to care about you." There was an unfamiliar tone to her voice. Mu Zhian reached for her hand, but she snatched it away. He got a little more handsy. Seeing that Bai Ruoxi wouldn't let him touch her hand, he just pulled her close, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Bai Ruoxi pressed against him, her beautiful face looking displeased. "What's your relationship with your senior?" Bai Ruoxi asked, her eyes a little dark. Is she asking if he and that woman are having an affair? Mu Zhian said helplessly, "I'm pretty sure I told you that when the medication for your father's injury didn't work, she was the one who gave us the Beast King vine." Even the Beast King vine, it seemed their relationship was good. Bai Ruoxi's expression softened, and she rested in his arms. "I wish I could help you as much as she does." Mu Zhian gently hugged Bai Ruoxi's waist, leaning in close to her ear, whispering, "Just being with me now is a huge help." Feeling his warm breath, listening to his gentle words, she seemed to shed her cold exterior. Resting in his arms, her bad mood started to fade. Mu Zhian felt her soft body against his, and smelled her intoxicating scent, but he was still preoccupied. Turning his head to look at the world slipping by outside the carriage, he sighed. Lan Mulyan and Bai Ruoxi were seriously smart girls. He was starting to worry if his deception would eventually kill him. Yi Mansion. After Yi Qian got back to the family, she trotted all the way to her room, thinking of the charming smile of the boy she just met. The elders always said that the eldest young master of the Mu family was a real bad egg, but he didn't look like one. In fact, he's more of a kind older brother. Contrasting Yi Yu's cold attitude when walking down the stage with Mu Zhian's gentle smile, the difference was suddenly clear. "I'll give the spirit stone back to him tomorrow morning." Thinking of this, Yi Qian stepped on the floor with her deerskin boots and walked towards the room. Just then, Yi Yu emerged from the hall after meeting with the elders. "Cousin," Yi Qian called out. Yi Yu's face was much calmer. He said, "Qianer, please send the Qi training pills ingredients to the door of my room later." He wanted to apologize for how he'd acted on the stage, but held back. He tried to make up for his previous mistakes by giving her a Qi training pill, but Yi Qian's face showed hesitation, and she refused. "It's no longer needed." "Thank you for your kindness, cousin." Then, she passed Yi Yu, holding the small box, and left. Her back was beautiful, her long hair falling down her waist, like a budding flower. Her dress set off her curves, and showed her calves, and that seemed translucent in the sun. Yi Yu frowned, but said nothing. Yi Qian's still young. She probably doesn't know how many spirit stones it costs to hire an alchemist to refine a Qi training pill. She'll probably regret it tomorrow, when she visits an auction house. When Yi Yu turned around and returned to his room, Yi Qian arrived at her door, where she saw another girl from the family. She wore a lavender dress, with a light purple ribbon tied around her waist, outlining her curves. She had a beautiful face, a faint smile, and an elegant manner. "Lingxian, what a coincidence." Yi Qian asked the girl, smiling. Ye Lingxuan is outwardly known as the second genius of the Yi family. Yi Qian and Ye Lingxuan have been friends since childhood, and she knows that her friend is actually the real genius, but Ye Lingxuan is low-key and doesn't like to compete, so most of the disciples in the clan only remember her appearance, and forget her talent. Ye Lingxuan smiled and nodded, then glanced at the box in Ye Qian's hand, raising her eyebrows slightly. Did Brother Yi Yu refine the Qi training pill for you? Facing a childhood friend, Ye Qian hesitated, but decided to tell the truth. This wasn't made by my cousin. It was sold to me at cost by the eldest young master of the Mu mansion. Ye Lingxuan frowned slightly, the eldest young master of the Mu family. Mu Zhian, that Mu Zhian is no good. Why would he be so kind? Did you give him the spirit stone? Ye Lingxuan asked. Ye Qian shook her head. I'm going to take the spirit stones to the Mu mansion tomorrow. Mu Zhian is no good, Ye Lingxuan said softly. I'll go to the Mu mansion for you tomorrow. Ye Qian was too innocent. She was worried about what would happen if she visited the Mu mansion by herself. Who knows, Mu Zhian might reveal his true colors and use the power of the Mu family to bully Ye Qian. It'd be safer for her to go. Others might fear the Mu family, but not her. Chapter 55 Bai Ruoxi's Fall 3K. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huang Manting wins. Lan Murian heard the announcement loud and clear. She stood and slipped out quietly. If Bai Ruoxi hadn't made that incredible move, Huang Manting from the Dawn Chamber of Commerce would have seemed pretty impressive, based on her earlier performances today, but now, with a dazzling display like that still fresh in everyone's minds, even a decent performance from the woman in black just wouldn't compare. Taking a while to win just doesn't pack the same punch as finishing off an opponent with a single strike, as Huang Manting stepped down from the stage. Her gaze immediately went to the empty stone chair where Lan Murian had been sitting. The examiner was gone. Understandable. After seeing Bai Ruoxi, no one's going to be too excited about the rest of the matches. Miss Huang, you're easily in the top 3 in Tianshan City. A young man approached her with a smile. Top 3? I'd say, apart from the Bai family's eldest daughter, Miss Huang is the strongest of the younger generation, hands down. Before today, most people figured Huang Manting was number 1, followed by Gong Suncheng, then Bai Ruoxi, but Bai Ruoxi's display just blew everyone's expectations out of the water. That sword was something else. You'd need a cultivator in the refining spirit realm to face that head-on. Huang Manting gave her admirers a coy look. We haven't fought yet, so it's hard to say. That bronze sword was amazing, but if she could just dodge it, she'd have a fighting chance. Gong Suncheng was just too arrogant. Mu Zhian had gotten under his skin. She wouldn't be so careless as to take that sword head-on. Still, it was surprising that Mu Zhian was with Bai Ruoxi. Bai Ruoxi had always ignored him before. No matter how hard he tried, he must have finally won her over, and judging by Bai Ruoxi's reaction, she seemed head over heels. Mu Zhian. Huang Manting's eyes narrowed, her curiosity piqued. How did a third-tier Qi training cultivator manage to win over Bai Ruoxi? Just with his looks? Plenty of good-looking guys have tried. Shaking off her throng of admirers, Huang Manting glanced at her subordinates. Find out when Mu Zhian and Bai Ruoxi started spending time together. Know your enemy. She was determined to get that inner disciple spot, whether it was Bai Ruoxi or Mu Zhian standing in her way. Back at the Mu estate, after returning with Bai Ruoxi, Mu Zhian sent a message to the Bai family saying she'd be staying for a few days. Then he invited her to the side hall for tea. He made an excuse to leave her and headed for his study. His little performance outside today had gone smoothly, except that Lan Murian might have seen the whole thing in the tea house. That would be a problem. It wasn't that he didn't expect to be seen. He just assumed Lan Murian was the stay-at-home type and wouldn't be out and about so early. Besides, that tea house was only known by the upper crust in Tianshan City. How would Lan Murian even know where to find it? Ever since she arrived in the city, something had felt off. First, she stayed at the luxurious Dragon and Phoenix Inn. Then, she found that tea house with the perfect view. Was she from Tianshan City? Or did she have friends here? Lost in thought, Mu Zhian reached his study. He opened the door to find 2 paper cranes on his desk. He unfolded the first one and read, Mr. Mu, Lianyi sect is different. Staying in the Qi training realm for too long will make it harder to become an inner disciple. Work harder for a better future. A word of encouragement from a senior. Probably the one she'd sent yesterday. given Lan Murian's attitude today, there was no way she would have sent one now. He spread out the letter and replied, "Thank you, senior sister. I'll practice harder to catch up soon. By the way, Chow Hai Inn in Tianxian City has delicious sweet-scented osmanthus cake. I'll bring you some if you have time." He sent the paper crane off and opened the second letter. "The snow lotus smelled lovely, I liked it very much, but it withered soon after I got it." Mu Zhian was surprised, a hint of doubt in his eyes. He remembered the snow lotus being perfectly healthy when he sent it. He'd even seen it in a vase. He picked up his brush and wrote a passionate little essay on the letter. Lan Mulyan wasn't as cold as he'd thought, she was actually a bit flirtatious. He'd imagined she'd never directly praised the snow lotus, but she'd been forward with her affection. That meant he could push his feelings further. After writing the 2 letters, he watched the paper cranes fly off, a satisfied expression on his face. He left the study and headed back to the side hall, unbeknownst to him, as the paper cranes soared. One flew towards the Yangfeng Inn, shimmering with fairy light, while the other quietly slipped out of the city gates, back at the Bai estate, in the main hall. "Madam, Master, a letter from the Mu estate." A servant presented the letter to Bai's father and withdrew. Bai's father opened the letter and scanned the contents. He frowned. "Nonsense. A young lady doesn't belong in someone else's house, especially not until the sect assessment starts." The beautiful woman calmly set down her teacup. "Mu Zhian probably put her up to it. Ruoxi has always been obedient and smart, she wouldn't do this on her own." Bai's father was furious, his face turning ashen as he slammed his fist on the table. He was seeing his daughter, his prized cabbage, stolen away. Splintered wood flew everywhere as the table legs collapsed. The servants outside were startled and looked over. The beautiful woman sat up straight, used to the outburst. She waved her hand. "You can leave. Everything's fine here." Once the servants were gone, Bai Yuanfeng sighed. "Master, aren't you even a little curious how the Mu family's eldest young master detected the evil spirit on me? Her husband was a brute without any brains. Deep within the Bai estate, the barrier shields demonic energy. Even if I leave, only a land immortal could detect the demonic energy mixed with my spiritual energy." Bai Yuanfeng crossed her legs and said, "But there are exceptions. The heavenly qi on the boy from the Yi family can purify spiritual energy around and absorb it directly. Once the mixed spiritual energy is gone, the demonic energy would naturally appear." Bai's father gradually calmed down. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Madam, do you think Mu Zhian has heavenly qi?" He shook his head. "Impossible. Gongsun Xiong and others secretly tested Mu Zhian. They would have found out long ago. Refining heavenly qi takes time. Back in Dragonhead Forest, there wasn't any time for Mu Zhian to refine it." Bai Yuanfeng asked, "What if the heavenly qi isn't in the Mu family kid's body? Are you saying the enemy who stole the heavenly qi is hiding in the Bai family, trying to expose you on purpose?" Bai's father frowned. "But hiding in the Bai family unnoticed, could someone really do that?" Bai Yuanfeng gave her husband a tired glance, as if she was sick of explaining. "Does our daughter need to hide when she's living in the mansion?" "Of course, my daughter doesn't need to." Bai's father froze, finally realizing. He turned his head. "You mean, Mu Zhian gave the heavenly qi to Ruoxi? That's the only way my demonic energy could have been exposed here." Bai Yuanfeng confirmed. Bai's father looked bewildered. "What is Mu Zhian trying to do? Giving away something like that?" His face softened. "If that's the case, we can rest assured leaving Ruoxi with Mu Zhian." Giving Bai Ruoxi the qi of heaven showed just how much Mu Zhian liked her. It was a shame his realm was so low. If he and Bai Ruoxi were both at the 9th level of qi training, it would be a match made in heaven. Bai's father couldn't help but feel a little regretful. By the way, the Bai family shouldn't be the one swallowing up part of the Gongsun family's business. Bai Yuanfeng suddenly said. Bai's father was taken aback. "Didn't you say we gave Tongmai pills to Gongsun Xiong? Gongsun Xiong will be badly hurt, but annexing the Gongsuan's industry should be handed over to the Mu family, and we want to help." Before Bai's father could speak, Bai Yuanfeng continued, Mu Zhian's kindness to the Bai family shouldn't be confused with Ruoxi. The Bai family was one thing, Bai Ruoxi was another. Tying Bai Ruoxi to the Bai family was one thing, and Mu Zhian wouldn't say anything, but it would hurt his relationship with their daughter, so, let Tongmai pills be given to the Mu family. Like Mu Zhian had said to Bai Ruoxi in the first place, the Bai family gives benefits that excite the Mu family, and the Mu family saves the Bai family. The spoils from the Gongsun family are benefits that can excite Mu Zhian. Now, the Bai family had kept its promise, but Tongmai pills had brought more than huge profits. Someone had stolen Bai Ruoxi's heart. Chapter 56 Mu Zhian, 9th level of Qi training. Suppressed directly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After instructing the servants to get Bai Ruoxi's room ready, Mu Zhian personally escorted her to the guest quarters. Bai Ruoxi followed him, her cloud-embroidered boots silent on the floor, her white dress flowing. She glanced up at the young man leading the way. I've stayed with the Mu family before, she said softly. You don't need to trouble yourself. Go ahead and take care of your business. Mu Zhian shook his head immediately, his expression earnest. No way. I'm a guest of the Mu family, and my parents would kill me if they knew I wasn't treating our guests right. Bai Ruoxi looked at him, a hint of unease in her eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling that Mu Zhian was up to something, but she hesitated to ask him to leave directly, not wanting to hurt his feelings. Finally, she kept her thoughts to herself and followed him in silence. Soon, Mu Zhian led Bai Ruoxi to a quiet room in the backyard. He opened the door, turned, and smiled. This is your room now. You can purify your spiritual energy here without worrying about being discovered. Bai Ruoxi nodded demurely, entered the house, poured a cup of tea for Mu Zhian, and suddenly said with concern, I wonder how my mother is doing. She still feels insecure in someone else's home, Mu Zhian thought, and then said reassuringly, don't worry. I wrote to your father. If he had a problem with it, he'd have sent someone to pick you up already, right? Bai Ruoxi's frown eased slightly. Yeah, she murmured, then, thinking of the day's events, she asked abruptly, what about Gongsun Cheng? That with the Bai family's resurgence underway, she worried that the incident with Gongsun Cheng might cause problems. Sometimes, no matter how strong you are, you can still be held back by other worries. If it hadn't been for Mu Zhian, Bai Ruoxi probably wouldn't have injured Gongsun Cheng so badly. Mu Zhian swirled the teacup in his hand, looked up at the worry etched on her beautiful face, and smiled. If you were so worried about the Bai family, why'd you fight him in the first place? Bai Ruoxi hesitated, struggling to explain. Finally, her voice, hushed and strained, drifted through the room. You were behind me. If she hadn't intervened, Mu Zhian would have been the one injured. She had to prevent that at all costs. She didn't regret beating Gongsun Cheng senseless, but he was the Gongsun family's top prodigy. He'd lost a ton of face today. What if the Gongsun family retaliated? Bai Ruoxi couldn't help but worry. Mu Zhian gently set the teacup on the table and smiled. Don't sweat it. Gongsun Cheng isn't a big deal. To the Gongsun family, he's just a talented kid, nothing more. Just a genius. No matter how talented or clever Gongsun Cheng was, he wasn't essential. The Gongsun family had enough problems of its own. They didn't have time to retaliate. Gongsun Xiong probably wanted the Mu and Bai families to forget he existed, to give him time to recover and come back strong. Despite his words, Bai Ruoxi still looked anxious. Mu Zhian wasn't worried at all. Gongsun Xiong was seriously injured, after all. Even in his prime, he wouldn't dare to openly challenge the Mu family, the biggest power in Tianxian City, but the Bai family was another story. Because Lan Mulian was in Tianxian City, Bai Yuanfeng was afraid his identity as a demon cultivator would be exposed, so he naturally wouldn't dare to take action. On paper, the Bai family's soul-refining cultivators were laughably few. If the Gongsun family took advantage of that, Mu Zhian noticed her worried expression and suddenly said, Ruoxi. What do you think would happen if some guy suddenly came on to you one day and started making out with you in the street? Bai Ruoxi blinked, pulled from her thoughts. She hesitated, then whispered, everyone would know, right? The fact that Tianxian City's most beautiful woman had a lover would be a huge shock to a lot of people.
maybe it wouldn't be citywide news, but it would spread fast among the younger cultivators. As she said it, understanding dawned in her eyes. She stared at Mu Zhian, her gaze sharp. What you did out there, was it for the Gongsun family to see? Yeah, but not entirely. Mu Zhian said seriously, there are other reasons too. Guess again. Bai Ruoxi was silent for a long time. Finally, she shook her head. I can't. Mu Zhian pulled out a bronze mirror and held it in front of her. The mirror reflected her stunning face. She was wearing a white dress embroidered with plum blossoms, the neckline low enough to hint at her cleavage. 2 strands of hair framed her face, resting on her full chest. She looked elegant and delicate, like a sheltered young lady. Figured it out? Mu Zhian asked. Doubt flickered in her eyes, then realization. She lowered her gaze, flustered. I don't know. Mu Zhian was suggesting that she was to blame for the incident, that she was too beautiful. Bai Ruoxi couldn't bring herself to say the words aloud. Mu Zhian seized the opportunity, gently taking her hand on the table. The qi of heaven can only be purified from the spiritual qi near me. If I want to meditate, I need to be close. Can I stay in here tonight to meditate? Bai Ruoxi was taken aback. She looked up at Mu Zhian. His eyes were sincere, without a trace of deception. He said earnestly, I'll just be meditating and practicing. I promise I won't do anything bad. Besides, you're a 9th level qi practitioner. If I tried anything, would I even stand a chance? That was true. There was a huge difference between the 9th level of qi refining and the 3rd. Bai Ruoxi could only use her bronze sword 3 times in a row at her current limit, and each strike was powerful enough that no 3rd level practitioner could withstand it. Bai Ruoxi was silent for a moment. Finally, she sighed softly. If I get flustered, I can't guarantee I won't accidentally unleash the bronze sword. Her words were a warning, but they also sounded a bit weak. Mu Zhian nodded in agreement. He sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, while Bai Ruoxi bent her knees slightly and removed her snow-white socks. Then she sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed, took out the qi of heaven, purified the mixed spiritual energy around her, and transformed it into spiritual energy that could be absorbed. A little while later, she felt a slight movement beside her. She slowly opened her eyes and saw Mu Zhian sitting cross-legged next to her. She hesitated, but didn't say anything to stop him. The floor was cold at night. It was understandable, but a moment later, she felt his breath on her face. She opened her eyes and saw his handsome face staring directly at her. A flicker of panic flashed in her eyes. Her voice trembling slightly, she whispered, "What's wrong? Absorbing spiritual energy like this is a little slow. I was born with a furnace inside of me. Maybe we could try another method." Mu Zhian said softly, gazing at her captivating face. Bai Ruoxi seemed to understand his meaning. Her eyes lowered. She didn't know whether to refuse or agree. Mu Zhian placed his hands on her shoulders and said softly, "If you hate it, just push me away." As he spoke, he gently pushed Bai Ruoxi back on the bed. Her eyelashes fluttered. She half opened her eyes to steal a glance at Mu Zhian. After a moment of hesitation, she gently wrapped her hands around his neck. Mu Zhian couldn't resist lowering his head and lightly touching her lips. Then, he leaned in and whispered in a teasing tone, "If everyone found out that a 9th level qi practitioner was pinned down by a 3rd level qi practitioner, what do you think they'd say?" Bai Ruoxi's heart skipped a beat. She subconsciously gripped the hem of her skirt, her back pressed against the bed, and she turned her face away from him. She'd been tricked again, because a 9th level qi practitioner really seemed no match for this little monk at the 3rd level. Chapter 57 Ye Lingxuan's Visit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was a silent night, at the Gongsun family estate. Gongsun Xiong slowly opened his eyes, wincing at the pain in his chest. He turned his head with difficulty, asking, "What's the situation outside?" That he was too injured to get out of bed, relying on his confidants for information. If he could, he'd make himself invisible, hoping everyone would forget about him for a while. The Mu and Bai families were watching like hawks. The Chenxi Chamber of Commerce was looking for an angle to profit, and his own clan members were already fighting over his position as head.
Gongsun Xiong was in the eye of the storm. Reporting, Master, the Bai family had returned to their mansion, and everything has been quiet since. They have been secretly reclaiming territory these past few days. Gongsun Xiong nodded, a little frustrated. He was still recovering and couldn't do anything about it. The sect assessment is in a few days. How's Qing'er preparing? His subordinate hesitated, glancing at him cautiously. The fourth young master got into a fight at the arena today and is seriously injured. Gongsun Xiong's eyes narrowed. Who in Tianxian City doesn't know the Gongsun name? Which refining god realm cultivator would attack Qing'er? Gongsun Qing was strong for his age. Gongsun Xiong assumed it had to be someone with significantly more power. The subordinate stammered, it was Miss Bai from the Bai mansion. He didn't dare say that Gongsun Qing had been defeated soundly by Bai Ruoxi with a single sword. Bai Ruoxi. Gongsun Xiong exhaled slowly. The Bai family barely recovered, and they're already getting cocky. Today, the Mu family's eldest son seemed very close to Miss Bai Ruoxi. People said they were even flirting at the arena. Gongsun Xiong was taken aback, then seemed to understand. Damn it. The subordinate started to ask what was wrong, but Gongsun Xiong slammed his fist on the bed. That idiot is more trouble than he's worth. Normally, a fight between Bai Ruoxi and Gongsun Qing wouldn't be a big deal, but not now. Now, the other side wasn't just beating up members of the Gongsun family, they were setting themselves up to profit from it. Mu Zhian was signaling that the Bai and Mu families were close and the Gongsun family needed to think carefully before acting. They'd probably be asking for medical expenses soon, and they wouldn't be cheap. The next morning, Mu Zhian finished meditating in Bai Ruoxi's room, feeling refreshed. The spiritual energy had increased significantly. It wasn't as dramatic as with Bai Ruoxi, but it was still satisfying. He glanced at the girl sitting cross-legged in front of the bed, her eyes closed. Bai Ruoxi was wearing a loose white dress, her pale face striking in the dim light. At first glance, she looked like any other young girl. But Mu Zhian knew how ambitious she was, he'd seen her potential before. And he felt the warmth of her heart last night, though he still wanted more. He didn't consider himself a pervert, but he wanted to experience her greatness up close instead of just admiring from afar. Moon-white dress hung on the rack beside him, with a pair of white socks and a waist ribbon fluttering in the morning breeze. Seeing Bai Ruoxi still meditating, Mu Zhian quietly left the room. He could sense that she was close to reaching the peak of qi refining. Meanwhile, he was still only at the third level. This furnace was boosting everyone else, but he wasn't getting any benefit. It was a total rip-off. He might be the most selfless person in the world. Mu Zhian shook his head and sighed. He was working hard to help Bai Ruoxi reach the spirit refining realm. But it was fine. He was helpful. Outside, he found Wei Mengru in a yellow dress standing alone in the yard, her back to him. She often woke up like this, finding Wei Mengru in a daze. The maid had always been quiet, never talkative, just silently doing her job. Noticing Wei Mengru glance over, Mu Zhian waved and smiled. Sister Mengru, let's spar. I need to loosen up. Wei Mengru nodded silently, but as she raised her sword, she paused and said, by the way. Mu Zhian looked confused. Wei Mengru said casually, remember to keep it down next time. The neighbors can hear you. Her cheeks flushed slightly, losing her usual cool demeanor. Mu Zhian's eyes widened. He'd almost forgotten that Wei Mengru was always nearby. So she must have been in the next room yesterday. Mu Zhian kept smiling, pretending to be calm. Ruoxi and I were just training. Did Sister Mengru misunderstand? Heh. Wei Mengru gave him a look of utter contempt. Don't act like you don't know what you were doing. For some reason, that look excited him. After a short session with the maid, the servant's voice came from outside. Master, the Yi family heir is here to see you. Shall I let her in? That Yi Qian must have really cared about those qi training pills. She was here early to pay. Mu Zhian wasn't surprised. He knew that an earnest girl like Yi Qian would keep her word. Sheathing his sword, Mu Zhian nodded.
Take her to the hall for tea. I'll be there shortly. Chapter 58 Cover a quick attack magic, enemy manipulator. 3K, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Mu Zhian returned to his room, straightened his robes, and fixed his hair before heading to the main hall. It wasn't to impress the girl, as the face of the Mu family, he simply had to maintain appearances. He preferred older, more understanding women. They were not only kind but also tolerant, gentle, and considerate. Mu Zhian stepped into the pristine hall, but instead of Ye Lingxuan, the sweet girl from yesterday, another girl stood there. If he remembered correctly, she was from the Ye family. Ye Lingxuan, maybe? She wore a lavender dress, her already ample chest subtly emphasized, the skirt patterned with violets. Her hair was pulled back with a jade hairpin, a stray strand framing her face. Though still young, it was clear she'd blossom into a real beauty. The Ye family has a girl this gorgeous. Mu Zhian was surprised. She was a couple of notches above Ye Lingxuan in looks. Grown up, she might even rival Bai Ruoxi. Ye Lingxuan's not feeling well today, so I came in her place. I hope you don't mind, Mr. Mu. Ye Lingxuan turned, a faint smile gracing her lips. It was an innocent, charming smile, the kind that made you instantly like her. She was on guard, wary even. Despite the sweet smile, Mu Zhian sensed her hostility. Though she tried to hide it, she was still just a girl. Health comes first. I hope Miss Ye Lingxuan recovers quickly. Mu Zhian smiled back. He sat in a chair near Ye Lingxuan and gestured for a maid to serve tea. Ye Lingxuan nodded. A couple of days of rest, and she should be fine. She raised a hand, a simple ring catching Mu Zhian's eye, a Xian-grade ring. No, this seemingly ordinary ring was actually a ground-grade ring. How could the Ye family afford one? Ye Lingxuan produced a sandalwood box from the ring and placed it on the table. This is the spiritual stone Qianer was going to use to purchase the Qi training pills, covering both the cost of materials and the refining fee. Mu Zhian opened the box, then smiled. Just the cost of the pills is fine. Forget the refining fee. You know Ren, from the Mu family, is an alchemist, right? Making a Qi training pill is nothing to him. He took half the spiritual stones and returned the box. Ye Lingxuan frowned. She'd included the extra fee precisely to avoid Ye Lingxuan owing Mu Zhian a favor, worried he might take advantage of her, but facing Mu Zhian's gentle smile and seemingly sincere eyes, she couldn't refuse. She silently took the box and returned it to the ring. After a moment, she broke the silence. Mr. Mu, Qianer is very naive. Please, leave her alone. Mu Zhian chuckled. I've never forced anyone. You misunderstand me. I don't care about your affairs. Ye Lingxuan's tone shifted. However, you did send Yi Yu into Dragonhead Forest to help trap a demon cultivator under Beizhou's 7th seat. That is a fact, isn't it? Mu Zhian's pulse quickened. He calmly sipped his tea, studying the composed girl. She knew about the 7th seat. She wasn't as simple as she seemed. The Yi family was a second-tier force in Tianxian City. Only by Yuan Feng and he knew about the 7th seat. Where had she gotten her information? I'm not interested in demon cultivators or the 7th seat. Your purpose is your business. Ye Lingxuan sipped her tea, setting the cup down gently. Just leave Qianer alone. And try to avoid conflicts with Yi Yu. Your brother's gone crazy. It's not like I want to fight him. All he does is challenge me to a one-on-one and says he'll call me Dad if he wins. Mu Zhian smiled. That's not up to me. You know I haven't provoked Master Yi. Ye Lingxuan frowned, knowing he spoke the truth. She'd investigated Mu Zhian and found out that Yi Yu had instigated their previous clashes. They weren't in the right, but her brother was secondary. Protecting Qianer from this guy was her priority. Yi Lingxuan was like a younger sister. And sisters looked out for each other. As for Yi Yu, she'd help if she could, but her hands were tied. They drifted apart since he lost his abilities. It wasn't that she and Yi Lingxuan hadn't tried to connect, but he'd been too withdrawn, almost autistic, refusing to talk to anyone. Only recently, with the return of his talents, had he begun to interact with others. But he seemed to think people had ignored him when he was weak and were only being nice now that he was strong again. so he was often cold. The truth was, no one looked down on him, he looked down on himself. Ideally, she wanted everyone to be happy, but Ye was still hung up on his broken engagement. This constant sulking was getting tiresome. If Miss Bai hadn't broken off the engagement, Ye wouldn't be like this. Ye Lingxuan said suddenly. Mu Zhian chuckled. If you were my fiancée and you didn't like me, would you want to marry me or break off the engagement? That everyone blamed others for their problems, but when faced with the same situation, could they make the right choice? Ye Lingxuan was silent. She held her teacup, looking down at her feet. Sorry. I was being simplistic. Bai Ruoxi's marriage was arranged by her parents. Now that she was older, she didn't want that kind of marriage and chose to end it. Was that wrong? Maybe. But she'd do the same. Who didn't dream of a fairy tale romance? No one wanted to be forced into a marriage with someone they didn't love. Thinking about it, she understood Bai Ruoxi. Her initial dislike of Mu Zhian stemmed from the broken engagement. Now, she saw things differently. Ye Lingxuan looked at Mu Zhian, her eyes sincere. I've learned a lot from this visit. I have other business to attend to, so I'll see you another time. She'd assumed he was a frivolous, womanizing young man, but the rumors seemed false. He seemed more like a kind, approachable guy. Mu Zhian smiled. Let me show you out. Though she remained wary, her hostility had lessened. That was enough. As she turned to leave, Mu Zhian paused, picked a snow lotus from a vase, and followed her. At the door, he placed the flower in her hand. Ye Lingxuan looked up in surprise. Mu Zhian smiled. Just a small token. The snow lotus represents loyalty and purity. I just thought it suited you. It wasn't flirtatious, just a simple compliment. Everyone liked compliments, even Ye Lingxuan. Her eyes softened. She nodded reservedly and entered her carriage. As it drove away, Mu Zhian retracted his gaze. Ye Lingxuan was smart and cautious. Any overt flirting would only raise her suspicions, but a subtle approach might work. At least her hostility had lessened, and if Ye Lingxuan was this guarded, what about Ye Qian? He'd have to take things slowly. Besides, he wasn't really interested in beautiful girls. He wanted to understand what was behind Ye Lingxuan's facade. Her words, actions, and knowledge hinted that she was more than just a Yi family descendant. Mu Zhian headed back to the mansion, pondering these things. Passing the lotus pond, he stopped, picked a snow lotus, and walked towards Bai Ruoxi's room. Chapter 59. How can we monks be lazy? 4K, 1/2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The carriage pulled up to the Yi family gate, and Ye Lingxuan hopped out, gathering her skirts. As she walked into the courtyard, she saw groups of clansmen practicing their forms. The sparring youths noticed Ye Lingxuan, and their energy spiked as if they'd been mainlining caffeine. Their casual practice turned intense, spiritual energy practically exploding around them. Though their skill wasn't that impressive, you'd think, to watch them, it was a battle between masters, each move earth-shattering. While sparring, the young men couldn't help stealing glances at Ye Lingxuan. Despite her quiet nature, the Yi family disciples considered Ye Lingxuan the most beautiful, and held her in high regard. Ye Lingxuan simply smiled at their attention and walked into the courtyard's covered walkway, cradling the snow lotus. A plain-robed old man materialized from the shadows. Ye Lingxuan glanced at him, her bearing that of an empress despite her youth. Old Wei, what's up? The old man, called Old Wei, shook his head, smiling gently. Just checking on you. Eldest Mississippi wanted to see how it went. Ye Lingxuan's expression relaxed, a faint smile gracing her lips. Old Wei, I told you, I just returned the spirit stones Ye Qian owed. There were no problems. Old Wei smiled and nodded. Still, Miss Mu Zhian has quite the reputation. When the master asked you to come to the Yi family, he specifically told me to protect you. I'd be ashamed to go back if anything happened. He noticed the snow lotus in her hands. Miss, that flower, where did you get it? He remembered Ye Lingxuan going to the Mu estate. Why a flower on the way back? Could someone have given it to her? Ye Lingxuan smiled sweetly. Mu Zhian gave it to me. The old man looked stunned, eyeing the beautiful girl with suspicion. He knew Ye Lingxuan was representing Ye Qian at the Mu estate today.
If he recalled correctly, she'd expressed disgust toward Mu Zhian just yesterday. Now she seems less disgusted. Ye Lingxuan hesitated. Young Master Mu isn't as bad as I thought. Old Wei was taken aback. Before he could ask more, Ye Lingxuan changed the subject. Do you know how to keep this snow lotus fresh? That the old man thought for a moment. Liuguang soil should keep it from wilting for 3 months, even without watering. But Liuguang soil is rare and pricey, so it might be tricky. He paused. But if I remember correctly, Chenxi auction will have a batch in 2 days. If you need it, I can go. Yi Lingxian paused, then looked up, a pure smile on her flawless face. Don't bother, Mr. Wei. I'll go with Qianer. It's been a while since I went out. Mu Zhian quietly opened the door to find Bai Ruoxi back in her moon-white dress. She sat by the tea table, lost in thought. Mu Zhian, wanting to tease her, held his breath and crept closer. Before he could speak, Bai Ruoxi's lazy voice floated out. Mr. Mu, what are you doing sneaking up on me? That she turned slightly, her usual cool demeanor now carrying a unique charm, but her eyes held a hint of resentment. They'd agreed to simply practice last night, but Mu Zhian couldn't resist making a move. If she hadn't kept a grip on her senses, she'd be stuck in the room all day. Mu Zhian knew why Bai Ruoxi was annoyed. He walked over and sat beside her. He pulled the snow lotus from behind his back, offered it to Bai Ruoxi, and smiled. I saw this snow lotus in the Mu estate flower bed and immediately thought of you. It represents loyalty and purity, perfect for you. Snow lotus. Bai Ruoxi's eyes sparkled as she looked at the flower, then at him. She quickly recovered, nodding demurely. Thank you. I'll take good care of it. She accepted the snow lotus, lowered her head, and inhaled its delicate fragrance. It smells lovely, she whispered. If only there was a way to preserve it forever. Mu Zhian gently took her hand. I can get you as many as you want. Bai Ruoxi's heart fluttered, and she lowered her head. Just as things were getting intimate, a knock sounded at the door. Bai Ruoxi snapped back to reality and quickly straightened her clothes and hair. Mu Zhian, interrupted from a morning of special training, scowled. Who would bother Ruoxi this early? No, they're here for me. After Bai Ruoxi was ready, Mu Zhian said, come in. The door opened, revealing a hooded figure, a spy from the Mu family. Master. The spy glanced at Bai Ruoxi. They appeared calm, but the room's vibe suggested things weren't so simple. Bai Ruoxi seemed to understand, saying, I'll leave you to it. As she left, Mu Zhian turned to the spy. What is it? I've received reports of someone investigating you. Mu Zhian was intrigued. Who? The Gongsun family wouldn't dare make a move, and the Bai family was unlikely to do so. Spying on someone was risky. With his relationship with Bai Ruoxi, it was unnecessary. The Dawn Chamber of Commerce, unlikely. Mr. Huang was sharp, knowing what to do. Could it be Ye Lingxuan's people? Mu Zhian wondered. The Dawn Chamber of Commerce, the spy said. Mu Zhian pondered. Not Mr. Huang, his subordinates. He thought of Huang Manting. He saw her with Bai Ruoxi at the arena. The she-devil wanted an inner sect spot. Know thy enemy, so she'd investigate those close to Bai Ruoxi. The spy nodded. Should we stop her? Mu Zhian shook his head, smiling. Let her. I have nothing to hide. He changed the subject. I have another task for you. He continued, seeing the spy's confusion. Go to the Gongsun family and demand medical expenses. Ruoxi's fight with Gongsun Qing shook the young master and Miss Bai. They need compensation. The young master will rest at Liangyi sect for 3 months, just say that. The spy hesitated. What kind of compensation? 3 market towns, Mu Zhian said. The spy was stunned. The Gongsun family might refuse. They only had 10 towns total. This was greedy. Mental distress is worth less than 3 towns, but 3 months of breathing room is worth more, right? Mu Zhian sipped his tea. Besides, the Gongsun family won't agree, but Gongsun Xiong will. Gongsun Xiong was a true capitalist, a complete egoist. His subordinates wanted his position. Gongsun Xiong didn't want to give it up, but he didn't want to be disturbed. He'd pay the price. But I still have to visit the Dawn Chamber of Commerce, Mu Zhian added. If it was just the Mu and Bai families, Gongsun Xiong might hesitate. The families could force the Gongsun to involve the Dawn Chamber of Commerce. Even if they couldn't beat the Mu, they could protect the Gongsun and the chamber, but the Mu involving the chamber, that changed things. Mr. Huang will avoid you, the spy said. Mr. Huang was shrewd, hiding during times like these. He'd avoid Mu Zhian to avoid suspicion. Mu Zhian played with his teacup. What about Miss Huang? She wants to investigate me. I'll let her. I'll let her investigate secretly, and even ask me questions face to face. He knew news of his Dawn Chamber visit would reach the Gongsun. Gongsun Xiong was jumpy. The Chamber of Commerce's involvement would make him paranoid. Go to the Gongsun family in 2 hours and demand those towns. Just say what I told you. He'll agree. He's a decent man. What if he doesn't want to be decent? Mu Zhian set down his teacup, smiling. If he wants to be decent, make him decent. If he doesn't want to be decent, make him decent. After the spy left, Bai Ruoxi returned. Mu Zhian sat on the bed, seemingly thinking. Bai Ruoxi closed the door, walked over, and sat beside him. What happened? Mu Zhian caught her fragrance and snapped back to reality. Nothing, just wondering how to start the conversation at the Dawn Chamber of Commerce. Why are you going there? Bai Ruoxi asked. She added, don't feel pressured if it's a secret. She worried, but wouldn't pry. Mu Zhian shook his head. It's nothing to hide. I'm visiting the Dawn Chamber of Commerce later. He gently put his arm around her waist, so naturally that Bai Ruoxi didn't react. She pondered. Are you seeing Mr. Huang? Mu Zhian shook his head. Miss Huang. Bai Ruoxi stiffened slightly. Recovering a moment later, she glanced at Mu Zhian, asking, is there something between you and Miss Huang? Nothing, Mu Zhian smiled. But you have to go. The Chamber of Commerce trip would push the Gongsun family's buttons. He had to go. I see. Bai Ruoxi lowered her eyes, puffing her cheeks, gently pushing his hand away, and said, since you have something to do, go. I'm going to meditate. Mu Zhian looked at her. She frowned slightly, pouting slightly, looking unhappy. Mu Zhian gently hugged her, looking into her eyes, and said softly, don't you trust me, Ruoxi? His warm breath and gentle words made her eyes sparkle. She looked at him, speechless. Mu Zhian looked back, staring at the beauty in his arms. A cold and pure girl, once flustered, was charming, hard to resist. Mu Zhian lowered his head, his lips gently touching hers. He stared into her eyes, whispering, do you believe me now? Bai Ruoxi's eyes flickered, flustered, but with nowhere to run. She looked away, whispering, I didn't say I didn't believe you. She quickly lowered her head. A 9th-level Qi training cultivator was no match for a 3rd level. Bai Ruoxi couldn't deal with Mu Zhian. Feeling the awkward silence, she raised her head, but met his gaze. His affectionate eyes held her captive. Nervously expectant, she closed her eyes, waiting. Mu Zhian understood. He lowered his head again, claiming her lips. After a long time, they parted. Bai Ruoxi gently pushed him away, burying her face, whispering, okay, go do your thing. I'm meditating. Mu Zhian looked at her affectionately, saying seriously, how can a cultivator be lazy? Bai Ruoxi rolled her eyes, pausing. Won't it waste your time? For some reason, Mu Zhian's gaze made her anxious. She gripped her skirt. Mu Zhian looked serious. So you can enter the realm of refining the spirit as soon as possible. There is no delay. Everything is worth it, Ruoxi. Half an hour later, Mu Zhian tidied his hair in front of the mirror. Then, he looked back at the girl seemingly asleep in the quilt. I'm leaving. Bai Ruoxi didn't speak, covered by the quilt, like an ostrich. After a long pause, she said softly. Mu Zhian left, refreshed, asked for a carriage, and headed to the Dawn Chamber of Commerce.